Just a minute. I think I did a mistake. Okay, so let's start with the identification of objects now. Okay, we have we had written a code which could dynamically open browsers with the help of interfaces in Java. Okay, I'll create a new Java project for today. Call it day 4. And let's start where we left yesterday. Okay, look, the thing is, we left at identification of objects and all. If I right click on this username text field, inspect this text field, I will be able to get this page source. Now, HTML page source, it is nothing but combination of tags and attributes. Okay, for example, this is a div tag. Okay, every tag has a tag name and it has got a few attributes associated with the tag name. For example, over here, ID and class are two attributes. Okay, uh, every tag starts somewhere. Okay, div tag is starting here, right? Or for example, yeah, this label tag, it is starting here and it is closing out here itself. But this div tag, which is over here, it is starting here and it is closing somewhere over here. So inside this div tag, there are many other tags as well. So if I'm moving my mouse over these tags, the elements represented by these tags, they get highlighted on the left side of the page as well. Sorry, my throat is not so good today. Okay, so please, yeah. So over here, we have got different tags and attributes associated with those tags, right? Based on this, I will just make a small file. Okay, I'll write over here tags.txt. Now there are different elements on a web page. A web page can have a text field. What kind of elements can be present on a web page? Right, a web page can have a text field, it can have buttons, right? Then checkbox, okay, and there can be different elements associated with the web. Just a minute, I don't know why people are calling it. Just hold on, guys. Just hold on. I'm sorry. Yeah. So over here, we have just a minute, guys. Someone is from the class is pinging me on WhatsApp. All right. So you have got text fields, you have got buttons, you have got checkboxes, right? And then you have got radio buttons, right? Then you have links on the web page, right? You have regular text on the web page, right? You have got images. Apart from this, what else is there on the web page? You have got drop downs, drop down elements. Okay. So generally, these are the components on which interact. Okay. So if you investigate these components, if I start with the text field, okay, if you look at, say, the username text field, a text field will always have the tag name as input. Okay. The tag name for a text field would always be input tag, no matter on which website the text field is. Okay, so the tag name for the text field is input. And if you look at the button, the login button, the tag name for a button is also input. So text field and a button, they have the same tag name input. Okay, if you talk about a checkbox, the checkbox is also having the tag name input. Okay, and I know, like from experience, the radio button also has got tag name input. So all these four elements, they have the same tag name. But in case of a checkbox, if the tag name is input, then there is an attribute type. The value of the type attribute is checkbox. That is, it is an input tag name whose type is checkbox. In case of a button, right, is submit. Guys, please keep your mic on off. Mhm. Please switch off your mic. Okay. So in case of a button, the tag name is submit, or sometimes the tag name is also a button. In the type is also button. Right. In case of a text field, if you look at this username text field, you have the type attribute as email. In case of a text field, the type attribute is email, or at times it is equal is text as well. Type is text. And in case of a radio button, the type attribute is equal to the value radio. Okay, so always this will always be there. In case of images, like for example, this thing, this Salesforce is an image. Image always has got the tag name img, and there is a source attribute which has got the URL from which the image is loading. Okay, this is the URL where the image is present. Right. So image tag will have the tag name img, and the source attribute will always be present. These are mandatory attributes. Maybe alt attribute or id attribute or border attribute might not be present, but source will always be present with an image which will hold the URL from which the image loads. Okay, and in case of a drop down, the tag name is select. There is no drop down on this web page, but I'll tell you. Select is the tag name in case of a drop down. And there is no mandatory option. There is no mandatory attribute. Okay, in case it is a link, all the links on the web pages have the same tag name, which is the anchor tag A, the famous anchor tag, and it's got the mandatory attribute href, which points towards the URL which will open when you click on the link. Right. So in case of links, the mandatory at the tag name is A, and href is the attribute, mandatory attribute. In case of a text, right, this is the regular text. For example, remember me. Okay, there is no fixed tag name for the text. Text can be in any tag like div tag, para tag, okay, or maybe label, LIUL. Okay, there are no fixed tag names for a text. All right. So this is how the elements will come to you. And if optional attributes, these in the end, these are mandatory attributes, type, source, href, these will always be present. But if any element has got ID or name, it rarely becomes easy to identify that particular element. ID or name are considered to be unique for an element. And guys, please keep your mics on mute.
Ashish, a question here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what if the newest coding practices, if we ask the developers to make a unique ID created like data test ID for each of these elements to identify the objects? Is there any challenges with that?
Look, developers can create IDs, but sometimes it becomes impossible to give ID to each and every element on the web page. Okay, not every element has an ID. Okay, so
Yeah, if it is, I mean, the development is happening along with the testing, so we can testers can define the IDs separate from the ID and the name fields, like a data test ID, something like that, and ask them to implement that along with the ID. Anyway, they are going to put the ID or name with it for the identification purpose.
but that will go in the production as well, right? So that is the thing.
So that doesn't make any impact, right, on the application.
It doesn't make any impact, but generally everybody is not so comfortable in doing that. Okay, it's not easy to give ID to every possible element on the web page. Okay, because you never know what you gonna test or something. So if element has got ID or name, it becomes easy to identify it. But if it is not having ID or name, then we have got ways to identify it as well.
Yeah.
Okay. You can ask developer to give ID or name, but he has also limitations. He has work. He cannot just give ID or name to every element on the web page. Okay. And uh, right now,
Ashish,
out
one
here,
question.
yeah,
Shall I ask?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So what about the calendars? I mean, we have different types of calendars. So do we have the same attribute type for calendar?
it's different.
Or
Calendar has to be managed by writing custom code.
okay,
Okay, I will tell you how to manage calendars.
okay,
Okay, so now out here in day 4, I'll create a new class known as Salesforce, and we will try to log in inside this Salesforce application in this particular class. Right. Now, if you look at the official documentation of Selenium, oh, this was the old website. Sorry, Selenium HQ. Okay, selenium.dev. Right. If you go to the downloads section, right, over here, you will see the API docs for Java, right? That official documentation. If you look at this documentation and if you look at the frames view, right, out here, if you scroll down, this is a WebDriver interface, which we discussed yesterday. This WebDriver interface has got different implementing classes, right? Different driver classes, right? And in this, you have an interface known as a web element, right? Now, the web element interface is something which is representing a generic HTML element. In Selenium, everything on a web page is known as a web element. All these elements which we discussed, all these elements fall under web element interface. Okay, so a web element can be a text field, it can be a button, it can be a checkbox. Okay, radio button, all these things fall under web element interface. And this web element interface is having some generic functions which can help you to interact with the elements on the web page. Like for example, on any web page, you can clear the value of a text field, or you can click on an element, or any element you can find the element, or you can get the location of the element, get the tag name of the element, get the size of the element on the web page, whether the element is displayed or not, is displayed, is enabled, is selected, okay, get text. So these are the generic functions by their name suggests us, such as their name suggests us that what they actually do. And these elements over here fall under the interface web element. And if you look at WebDriver, then WebDriver interface has got few functions. One of the function is find element. This function finds an element on the web page and returns you back the web element. Okay, so basically you need to just hold on, write a code like this for Salesforce. Okay, you need to go to the Salesforce login URL. Okay, and out here, if you write driver dot find element, then this command will return you a web element. Okay, username. Okay, so web element username is driver dot find element by some criteria. Okay, you have to go and find the element on the web page using the find element command. This command will go and find the element on the web page and will return you the interface reference of web element. Now, by which criteria you want to find it? This criteria is defined by a class known as by. Okay, if you click on this, the class by will open. This has got the mechanisms used to uh, locate the elements in a document. That is basically mechanisms used to find an element on a web page. Not find, but to locate the element on the web page. And everything in this class is static. Basically, this class has got, we call it technically, we call it locator strategies. Okay, you want to find the element with ID, or you want to find with link text, or you want to find with name, you want to find with partial link text, tag name. Okay, there are many others like you will not understand XPath or even CSS selectors. Okay, so out here you can write by the ID. Okay, the by class has got different static functions, like you want to identify it with class name, CSS selector, ID, link text. Let's start with ID. Okay, from the application, we know that the username field in this application, it is having the ID as username. What this will return you? This will return you the username object, web element object. And what do you want to do with this username? There are a lot of functions which you can you use on this username web element, and you can use the username dot send keys. Okay,
Ashish, a question here. So
yeah,
when you are doing the find element by ID, it will return a username is a string, right? So
yeah,
the
it's a
username
it's a
return type
object
should be
of
string.
it's a reference of web element interface. Driver.findElement returns you the web element interface reference, not a string. Okay, you can call it anything, user ID or something. Don't confuse this username this with this. This is the ID.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so you want to type in something. So there's a function known as XYZ. Sorry, this function known as send keys, which can go and type anything inside the user ID field. Okay, so this is the user ID field. On this, you can fire the send keys function, or you can fire many other functions as well. We will look at that. But send keys function can type into a text field. So if you run this code, this will go and launch the browser. Hold on. It's running on Mozilla. See, it's running on Mozilla, and See, it's typed XYZ. So it's like you can inspect the web page on one browser, but you can run it on any browser. I inspected on Chrome, and it's working over here as well because in Mozilla as well, the ID remains the same. The page source will remain the same, right? So if I inspect the password field, this is the password field. It's got the ID password. It's also got name. Name is PW, right? So if I want to extract the password field, I can write driver dot find element by the name PW password dot send keys some password. So this will return you. Hold on, no, this I haven't told you. I'm used to this. Just hold on. This will return you the web element password, and you can go and type something inside the password field. So when you run this code,
Hi Ashish, I want to ask one thing. Like for the ID, we can be sure that it's a static field, but what about the names and the class? How can we be sure that it's a
ID
static?
and name are generally unique.
Okay.
Okay, 99.99% of the times, IDs and names are unique. Okay, so you see that?
Ashish, the same question, if that is changing, like if they don't give the ID and name, and if there's something dynamically changing, uh,
Look, if there is no ID or a name, there are other ways like XPaths or CSS selectors, which I will tell you.
yeah.
Okay, with them
What
you
if they are
can.
dynamic?
There are ways to do that. I will tell you. There are many ways.
Okay.
Okay. So this is a simple thing that you can find element by this. Similarly, you can go and find the button as well. Okay, if you look at this page, there is a login button. The ID is login, and sorry, you can extract the button like this, and you can write button dot. What do you want to do? You want to click on the button. So the function is click. So you run this on say Chrome this time. You just have to change the browser, and this is going to run on Chrome. Okay, but the thing is, hold on. You see, it submits the button as well, right? So, but the thing is, to interact with one element, you are writing two lines of code over here. Okay. So what you can do is, instead of two lines, you can write just one line of code like this. Driver.find element by the ID username. This will extract the element, the web element, and on the web element, you fire the send keys function. Execution is from left to right. First, this part is executed, then send keys. And similarly, driver.find element by the name password, and on password field, you can send keys pass. Okay. And similarly, button, you can write driver.find element by the ID button, and then you can try to click on the button. Okay, right. So
Ashish,
you,
sorry to interrupt, but this web element that we just erased off from the screen, it was an interface class, right? It was an
yeah,
interface, sorry. So
Yeah.
don't we have to define the like web element pass? So don't we have to define our element or the code that we have
Look,
written?
when the execution happens, this is executed first, and a web element is returned. Okay, this will be replaced by that web element object, and you fire then when it is extracted, you fire the function on it. So you can
Uh,
write it one line.
That I get, Ashish, that first we are selecting that very field where we have to put in our value, and then we send keys to that very field. That is fine. But with the interface class, don't we have to define the entire piece of code so that it is known to the that so that the that very block knows that this very data is coming from the interface class.
No, we don't need to do that. That's what. This highlighted text section will be replaced as an interface only at the runtime internally. Okay,
Okay.
so that you don't have to write multiple lines. So you find the element, this will become the web element, and on the web element you fire the functions.
Okay.
Okay. Now there are few things like what if there are two elements on the web page with the same ID? Okay, if there is a web page and on the web page, say there are two elements, one is over here and one is over here. Both of them have the same ID X. Then what will driver.find element do? Look, Selenium as a tool extracts the elements from the web page from left to right side like this, and it goes down the web page. The scanning of the web page happens like this. Okay, from left to right side, and it goes towards the bottom of the web page. So if two elements have the same ID, then Selenium will automatically use the first one. It will ignore the second one. There are ways to use the second one as well. I will tell you those ways in coming time. But by default, driver.find element command will find the element on the web page, the first element on the web page. Okay, if you look at the documentation as well, in the WebDriver interface, this is the WebDriver interface, and in this interface, the find element function says finds the first web element using the given method. Okay, now this is good, right? What if the IDs are changing? What if an element is not having an ID? You will,
Ashish,
yeah,
just before going there, in your previous example, if we have two elements with the same ID, can we use another element to find the element like ID and name? There will be definitely any object on the page should be unique. There will be something which makes it unique. So
no, sometimes what happens is that there are two elements which are exactly same. It happens. For example, there is a search text box on the top and there is a search text box at the bottom. The developer, he is least concerned about automation people. He gives everything same. It
yes,
happens.
you are
Okay.
right. So in that case, there are two search boxes, and there will be while developing for identifying himself to develop the element, he will make something unique, right? Search box one or search box with
No, he
some.
doesn't need that. In development, it is not needed.
Okay,
Okay. It happens. Okay. So there are ways to do it. It's very easy to manage. Okay.
okay,
So over here, yeah, there are duplicate elements are always there on the web page. It's not that you can ignore that thing and say that fine, it's a
okay.
mistake by developer. It's not a
My question
mistake by
was,
him. Yeah.
you're right. Maybe, yeah, yeah, I agree with you. There could be duplicate. My question was like, can we use two elements like ID and name as a combination to find to identify an element if that exists? Like,
Not like this, but in XPaths and all you can use it. I will tell about XPaths in coming time.
okay, and
Okay.
we can do it only if I find element only one, either ID or name. We
Yeah,
cannot
one
use.
of the criterias. By which criteria?
Yes, you can we use two
No,
there, ID and name as well, by ID and by name, so
no,
that
you
it makes
cannot use
unique.
that.
Sorry,
You cannot use that
I
by
cannot.
ID and by name.
Okay.
Okay. So out here, if you hold on. Okay. So over here, if you look at any element, for example, you have to extract the text, remember me. From the web page, you want to extract the text, remember me. But this remember me text has got no ID or a name. Okay. So you cannot just simply use ID or name everywhere. You see that? Okay. So there are ways to do it. You do it with XPaths, you do it with CSS selectors, right? And there is one
Can't we
thing.
use further, Ashish,
What?
that example in the
Yeah.
previous example? Yeah, in the label of for equal to remember, we can't we
There is
use
no
that?
attribute. There is no option in Selenium to identify it with for.
Okay.
I dot
So
for
how
is
will we
not.
know which are there and which are not there?
These are the ones which are there by a class name, CSS selector, ID, link text, name.
Okay.
These are the criterias with which you can identify the elements.
So by identifies only those things, not the
Yeah,
other one. Yeah,
yeah.
by
So
class.
ID and name are the ones which we are very happy with. But if it
Correct.
is not there, there are many ways to do that. Right. The for
Okay.
attribute is over here, but the for is not in the list of Selenium. Right. So, anyways, right.
Yeah.
Now, what if this element is this? Let's take another scenario. I put an ID which is actually not there on the web page. Okay. So when you run this code, it runs and it throws an exception. No such element exception. No such element exception means that on the web page there is no element which has such an ID or something. Okay, so if you get this exception, that means that the element was unable to be was not present on the web page. Sometimes you have to tell Selenium that fine, if it is not present, then don't throw the error immediately. Try to find it for maybe 10 seconds and then throw the error. So sometimes there are Ajax based components on the web page. The elements they take a little while to load. So you want a little waiting time that whenever Selenium is finding any element on the web page, you have some buffer time with you. Okay, for that, we have the concept of implicit weight. Okay, you write over here, driver, dot find the driver dot manage dot timeouts. This is the command. Implicitly wait. Implicitly wait for, say, I'll put 20, and in unit I will write time unit dot seconds. That is, this is the seconds time. Okay. In the 4.7 version, they have given, in this version, they have changed something in this duration of seconds 20. Hold on. Just a minute. Somebody was telling me they've changed. I'm using. Yes, so they have deprecated all the way. So you write over here this way in 4 alpha version. That is driver dot manage dot timeouts dot implicitly wait for the 20 seconds to write duration of 20 seconds. So this is a global. First of all, this is a global timeout. Global timeout means that this line specifies that whenever we are going to write driver dot find element command and element is not found in 20 seconds, it will throw the exception after 20 seconds. During the 20 seconds, it will keep on checking on the web page if the element is present or not. If the element appears in the 10th second, it will use the element and move forward. So it's a global timeout. That means it's available to all the driver.findElement commands, and it is, apart from being a global timeout, it is, you can say it's dynamic wait. It's not that for every line I'm going to use to wait for 20 seconds. If the element is found or is present, it will immediately use it. Or if the element is found in the 5th second, it will immediately use it. Okay. So when you run this code,
Ashish, how is it different from thread.wait?
thread.sleep is another command used for waiting. I will tell you. Hold on. See now, it will, it's not throwing the exception. After 20 seconds, it throws the exception. So for 20 seconds, it is keep on, it's like it's polling the web page continuously. There is another command known as thread.sleep in Java. This is a Java command. Say I write 10,000 milliseconds. That means 10 seconds. This command thread.sleep should be avoided. Use it sometimes. It is like pausing the program. Simple. Whether element is if I give this command before say this line, then the program will simply pause for 10 seconds. It's got nothing to do with finding the element on the web page. It will stop the program for 10 seconds, and after 10 seconds it will resume. Even if the element is found in the 5th second, it will simply ignore that fact. Okay, it will keep on waiting till the 10th second, or pause, or it will keep the program on the pause mode till the 10th second. So you should avoid this. Okay, because Selenium has got its own waiting way with the help of implicit wait. Right. Just a minute. Let me connect my charger. 1 minute. Yeah, yes. So thread.sleep is good to use once or twice, but if you use it everywhere after every line, it doesn't make sense. So you just put a global implicit weight. And this line has to be given just once, and we prefer giving it immediately after opening the browser. That fine. This is your global timeout. Okay,
Ashish,
now
so this is a recurring command, or is it to be used just once, as in
it
when the
is to be
browser
put just once when the browser opens. Simply says that it's a global timeout. It is applicable to all driver.find element functions in the program.
So
Okay.
like if I enter the ID and password and click on the next and I had load the page again, so it'll again wait for the 20 seconds, or it won't, like it will just do it at
It
the
is to
starting of the.
wait for the loading page has got nothing to do with it. It will whenever this command is getting fired, this line is getting executed driver.find element. And if the element is not found, it will simply wait for this much time maximum. Whether
Okay, got it, got it.
okay, right. So now if the element is not having an ID or a name, we use XPaths. I don't want to start with XPaths at this stage because I need time for that. But the exercise which I had given you yesterday, someone pinged me, okay, I was actually somewhere, I could not respond back with the error or something. Just try to do this. Okay, this is very important. Okay, try to write a Java code which will use JSON object, JSON array. You might face some difficulties. Okay, start small. Just try to read this first, then this, then write a for loop to print every array, and then write a for loop to print these product details as well. Okay, so this will give you a little hand in core Java programming and building some logics as well, right? Whatever I'm teaching, whatever I'm training you, please practice it on daily basis. Things they get complicated as you proceed with the training, and people are not able to follow them, right? So please, you know, maintain a consistency, right? And uh, that's it.
Ashish, a question here. So you have implemented with Chrome, either Chrome or Mozilla Firefox, right? What if we want to test with multiple browsers at the same
There
time?
are ways to do that. Okay, that is why I'm coming over to this JSON. We will read the browser names from JSON and pass it over to the script and execute the script multiple times. Okay, there are ways to do that. Gradually, you will come to know those things. Gradually, not immediately.
Okay.
Okay, so all right, I'm stopping a little early today, right? Because XPaths, I really don't want to start right now. Okay, I will send you the recordings. Anybody with any questions, anything?
Yeah. Ashish, how do we request help from you after the class? How do I ping you, for example?
Look, post it in the forum once. 2 to 3 times a day, I check the forum.
On the forums or
Yeah,
like on that
yeah.
Selenium forum?
Since
Okay.
1.5 days, I have not been able to check it, but I check it regularly. Two to
Okay.
three times a day, I check the forum. Okay.
Okay, thank you. And Ashish, which of these data structure, the arrays are the ones that you want to use specifically in Selenium, or do we use something else like collections or some other things?
I'll gradually tell you the
Okay.
collections, interfaces, array lists, sets, hash maps, hash tables, everything is used.
Everything. So right now arrays is good enough to learn to keep
Yeah.
going with the classes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ashish, the forum is in the website, right?
Log in into your account. On the left side, you will see a forum button.
Okay.
So, right.
And tomorrow, do we have class?
Yes.
Tomorrow, okay.
Tomorrow is a holiday. No.
No, actually, I was thinking about the Christmas break.
24th, 25th, we can take an off. We can have the class tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that is good. For New Year's also, we can have a break for 2 days, like 31st and 1st. And on the remaining days, we can have the class.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Ashish, can I get the Google Drive link for our batch recordings?
I will, no, there is no batch recording in the Google Drive. Once the trial classes are over, all the recordings will come in your account themselves. Okay?
Okay.
So, fine. So, fine then, right? Yeah. I'll stop here for today. Okay, fine.
Okay. Thank you.
You did not get any recordings. I mailed the recordings.